In a fast-paced world, every day brings new challenges and new opportunities. At Strayer University, we know a thing or two about getting and staying ahead of change. For over 130 years, we've been providing students like you with innovative tools, customized support, and an education built to empower you, so you can find your way forward and always keep striving. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. The first step to reaching your full potential is having the courage to start. At Strayer University, we help students take action by making higher education more affordable with access to up to 10 no-cost gen ed courses, because our goal is helping you work toward yours, so you can always keep striving. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. No-cost gen ed provided by Strayer University affiliate Sophia Learning. Eligibility rules apply. Connect with us for details.
Welcome to the Having It All podcast, the show about what it takes to live an abundant, loving life. My name is Matthew Bivens, and I want to help you live with more clarity, confidence, and purpose so you can truly have it all. Let's do it. What's going on, my awesome friend? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Matthew Bivens, your balanced lifestyle coach. And whether this is your first time here today or if you have been here since day one, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for choosing to invest this time with me today. If you feel inspired, please hit that subscribe button on whatever podcast player or app you are tuning into the show from right now. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can shoot me an email, matthew@matthewbivens.com. Send me some episode topics, questions, or if you just want to say, what's up? I love it all, and I love to connect. All right, today's episode is all about codependency and what it actually looks like to be in a codependent relationship. So by the end of this conversation, you might find yourself reflecting on the state of some of your current relationships, and you might be thinking, oh man, I am in a codependent relationship. I have created a codependent relationship. What do I do next? So if that ends up being you, it's all right. Stick to the end. I'm going to give you some next steps so that you can address and heal the codependency. Now, codependency is at the root of many, many issues and many challenges that people face in relationships. Yet a lot of people don't realize that because it's not always easy to spot, especially if you just hang out on the surface and really don't peel back some layers. For example, you may not think that things like chronic burnout, like constantly feeling burnt out, having depleted energy, or insecurity, right? You feel scared, you don't trust people, don't trust yourself, or even depression. You may not think that those things can be caused by codependency, but they absolutely can. If you trace those threads back, it's typically codependency, which is creating those different things. And so if you fail to get at the root of the issue and heal from there, heal from the root, then you're just going to continue to repeat the same things over and over, continue to repeat and create the same types of relationships over and over and wonder why and simply be frustrated. As a coach, I see this all the time. I see it all too often where people are addressing their issues from the surface. All right, they just kind of address what's going on. They address the pain point, and they never penetrate down through the layers to get to the heart of what's really, really going on. And so in this episode, I'm going to be going through the 8 signs of codependency in relationships. Now, I'm going to tell you exactly why these things create unhealthy relationship dynamics that absolutely need to be addressed if you want to have long-term joy. If you want to feel deeply connected with your partner, if you want to feel that deep intimacy and love, then you have to address these things. Otherwise, it's just going to be a cancer on the relationship. So let's get into it. First thing I want to do is actually define codependency in the context of this conversation, because there's a lot of different ways you can define codependency. Go on Google and look them up. But I'm going to share a definition that we've come up with at the Your Day Balance Game. And I'm a coach through the Your Day Balance Game. I've been with this organization for 10 years. It was actually in one of our small groups called a Circle of Influence group where the idea for this podcast was actually birthed. So I owe a lot to the Your Day community. And in the Your Day Balance Game, we specialize in supporting people heal their codependencies so that they can be truly independent for the first time in their lives. And after working with so many people, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, we've been able to narrow down our definition of what codependency actually is. So for the purpose of this episode, this is the definition of codependency. Codependency is an addiction to taking care of others or working at the cost of your health. And you do this due to moral obligations and or feeling trapped by your responsibilities, which can be also called your values. So here's an example. Imagine there is a parent with a grown child, an adult child, somebody in their 30s, 40s, 50s. But this parent has stunted the maturation of that adult child because all through the years, this parent took care of this adult child's every need. They took care of everything. If they struggled, they had money for them. If they got themselves into a problem or dilemma, the parent was there to get them out of it. So all through the years, they just took care of every single thing. And the parent did that because the parent had a very strong need to be needed. So the parent benefits by feeling needed. They feel valued. They feel important by the relationship. And the adult child benefits by not having to be responsible for their life. They don't have to be held accountable for their choices and their actions. And then they can blame all of their life frustrations onto the parent. This is a very codependent relationship. And codependent people simply are unable to generate their own sense of self-worth, a sense of deep trust, validation, a sense of security, guidance, belonging, and power. They struggle to generate those things from within themselves. And as a result, they look outside. They look to other people and other places to give them those things. And so when you become overly reliant on other people to fulfill your base emotional needs, then you have become dependent on them. And then when they in turn have become dependent on you in some way, now there's a codependency. And it is a vicious, vicious cycle. Because one person's dependency tends to reinforce the other person's dependency, and it just goes round and around and around. And the longer you stay in that, it's like a muscle, right? If there's a muscle of, I get this validation from you. I feel needed when you need me. I feel loved when you tell me that you love me. So I'm going to keep on going back to that. And then there's this other potential outcome where you generate those things from within, but if you're never exercising that muscle to build it from within, it's just completely atrophied. There's no strength there. And so you're not going to use the muscle that has no strength. You're going to go back to what's been working. So when you're in that place, I'm telling you, I've seen it and I've experienced it because I've created codependent relationships and codependencies in my past. When you're in that space, you're going to come up with every single reason to validate your codependency. You will justify it. You'll make excuses for it. You'll validate it. You'll even attract people around you who are going to support and validate that same codependency, just making it even more challenging for you to gain the perspective necessary to actually see what's going on and really see what you've created. So that's what we're going to be doing. That's what we're doing right now, is building that perspective. Let's go into the 8 signs. The 8 things I'm going to read off, these are just signs that you might be in a codependent relationship. If any of these things describe you, or if you can really, really relate, then I want you to pay attention, because there's really one destination on a codependent path. And I'm telling you, it's not joy. It certainly is not sustained joy and feeling like you are in this magnificent relationship. A lot of time it's pain. A lot of times it's frustration. A lot of times it's breakdown. But we got to see the reality of what we've created and get out of denial in order to be able to create something new.
All right, so there we were, cruising through the new open-air zoo when I realized that the park was closing in like 15 minutes. Luckily, we were in my Nissan Rogue. With its powerful VC turbo engine, well, we had time to see all the animals. Whoa! And outrun a few!
Drive the Nissan Rogue.
So the first sign that you are in a codependent relationship is that you are constantly seeking reassurance. You ask your partner questions like, do you love me? Are you mad at me? Is everything okay? And you do that because you internally have a very low self-worth or a low self-esteem or a low sense of security, especially when you feel like your partner is unhappy or when you feel like they're about to leave the relationship. So that insecurity and your inability to generate those things from within yourself causes you to then go and get that reassurance. Is everything okay? Are you all right? Are you mad at me? Do you still love me? Do you even like me? Are you happy in this relationship? And when you're constantly doing that, that's a sign that you've built a codependent relationship. And I can attest to this one. That was me. I was the person that was constantly asking my partners, are you okay? Like, is everything all right? Because when I would simply perceive something was off, it made me very scared deep down that they were going to leave me and I was going to be alone. And then I would be alone forever and I would ultimately die alone because no one could ever love me. You see, these are the thoughts. It just keeps on going like a string, like a chain. So constantly seeking reassurance is that first sign of codependency. Sign number 2 is when you feel responsible for solving the problems of another person. You feel like it's your responsibility to go and fix whatever it is that they've got going on. Even if they're not asking you to, even if they're working on their own solution, you feel that that's what you have to do. You need to help them because if they don't solve the problem or they solve it and they did it without your help, then maybe they're going to eventually leave you. And so that's why it's like, no, I got to take this responsibility and I got to solve these problems. And so this is a big sign of codependency because underneath it is this fear that they're going to leave you. It's the insecurity coming out once again. And so you feel that you will not be needed if you can't solve a person's problems. And so this desire to be needed fuels you to go and constantly take care of their problems. And then what happens is you feel responsible for the things going on in their life. If they're unhappy, you feel responsible. If they create a challenge or a problem for themselves, you take the responsibility for that. You take the blame for that. So if that's what's going on, if you're experiencing those things, then yeah, that's a sign that you're in a codependent relationship. Here's sign number 3, is that you cannot say no. You just can't say no. Whatever it is that they want, whatever it is that they ask of you, you just have the biggest struggle saying no. Because you feel that if you say no to them, then they're going to go elsewhere to somebody who they're going to get a yes from. You're so scared of saying no because if you say no, they might leave. And so you feel insecure. You don't feel like the relationship is on steady ground. You don't feel confident in being able to speak up for yourself. Even if deep down there's something that it just feels off about the request, you still will say yes. Or you just struggle so much saying no because you feel like it's going to ruin the relationship or just make them mad. And go back to sign number 1. If they become mad, then they're going to leave. So if you struggle with saying no, that's a sign that you might be in a codependent relationship. Sign number 4 is you avoid conflict at all costs. You are just terrified of conflict. And so what that ends up resulting in is you will not assert your boundaries. If there's a line that you've drawn in the sand and that person starts coming up close to that line and you feel like there's conflict over that line, then you just wipe the line away. You back up. No, it's okay. I acquiesce. And so you don't have any boundaries, right? Anytime that you feel that their conflict might arise, then you just pull back. You surrender and you avoid it at all costs. Because once again, you believe that if this person perceives a conflict, that they're going to leave, that they're no longer going to want to be with you, they're no longer going to want to be around you if they feel that there's conflict arising in the relationship. And so sometimes you turn into a very passive, right? You just don't want to rock any boats. Other times, you still will be this passive person who doesn't want to rock the boat, but you also might try to subtly manipulate things and control things in the relationship so that no conflicts appear. You try to steer the relationship around any potential landmines that could turn into blowups or conflict. And all of that trying to control things and feeling insecure and not wanting to say no and not wanting to hold your boundaries and standards, that leaves you feeling so much stress, especially when you perceive a conflict is coming along. So that is sign number 4 that you are in a codependent relationship, when you have this huge need to avoid any type of conflict. Sign number 5 is that you will do anything to hold on to the relationship. You will do anything, you will say anything, you will change anything about yourself or your life just to hold on to this relationship. No matter how destructive the relationship is, no matter how unhealthy it is, no matter how dangerous it is, you will do anything to hold on to it. And so you're going to ignore your own needs, you're going to ignore your own boundaries, you're going to ignore your intuition, your gut, your conscience, you'll ignore your morals, you'll ignore everything so that the relationship doesn't go away. And a lot of times, you end up apologizing for things that you had nothing to do with. Apologizing for things that you are not responsible for, but you do it to keep them happy. It's kind of like the 4th sign, avoiding conflict. Like, you'll do anything to keep them happy, to keep the relationship intact, even if it means taking on things that weren't yours, changing things about yourself. Maybe they want you to wear certain clothes or behave a certain way or have a certain hairstyle. You'll change all of that just to preserve the relationship. If that's what's happening, then yeah, that is a very codependent relationship. Here's sign number 6. You only feel valued when you are needed. When that person needs you for something, that's when you feel valued. Think back to the example of the parent taking care of all the needs of that adult child. That parent feels valued when that child needs them. For whatever reason, when they are needed, okay, now I feel like I am valued, I feel like I'm valuable, I feel like I have purpose. But when they don't feel valued, then it's a huge struggle. It's a huge struggle. So this one also connects back to the problem-solving one, right? You want to solve everybody else's problems. And so again, that has to do with feeling needed. And so you have this tendency to believe that if a person doesn't need you, or you aren't fixing all the different problems in their life, or taking care of all the things, it may not even be a problem. If you aren't doing all those things, taking care of all their needs, then you have no value. And that is a very, very scary place to be in if you feel like you have no value. So you will go out of your way and do a whole lot of things to make sure that you are needed. Once again, you might subtly manipulate things in order to stay needed by that person. It can be very, very insidious, but this is what we do. And if that's you, then yep, that's a sign that you're in a codependent relationship. Sign number 7 is you are overly concerned with other people's feelings. You put your partner's feelings first, your best friend's feelings first, your parents, your family, whatever, all of their feelings you put first. And so you become so preoccupied with how they are feeling in a moment and how they are perceiving you, and you start creating all these stories in your mind based off of what you're believing they're feeling. If they're feeling sad, then whoop, that sends you down a path of why they must be sad and how it's your fault. If they're feeling angry, then there you go, down another path of why they're angry and why you're the one who's caused it. And so your life ends up becoming all about the feelings of the other person. And it's so easy to become obsessed with how a person is feeling. You might start watching them, like hawkishly watching this person and really trying to tap into everything that they're doing and saying so that you can come to understand what they're feeling. And most of the time, if they're feeling anything other than joyful, then it can create some anxiety. And even if they are feeling joyful, you might believe that the joy is coming from somebody else. Someone else is the source of the joy, and it's not you, and that can create anxiety and worry. So if you are overly concerned with others' feelings, then that is a sign that you're in a codependent relationship.
You know a spot, but not just a spot, the spot. Actually, with the all-new Nissan Frontier, you know a bunch of them. But the key to these great spots? Being able to reach them in the first place. Your spot is out there. Find your Frontier in the all-new 2023 Nissan Frontier with standard 310 horsepower, advanced tech, and 281 pound-feet of torque.
If you're looking for the most epic place on Earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
And lastly, sign number 8 is because of all these things going on and all your preoccupation with other people, you struggle to identify your own needs, your own desires, and your own emotions. You are so preoccupied with the status of another person, the state of another person, that when it comes to yourself, it's like a big question mark. You feel lost. You feel confused. You cannot figure out your own emotions. You have a hard time pinpointing an emotion, describing an emotion. You have a very hard time figuring out where an emotion is coming from. You don't really understand what it is that you need in a moment because so much of what you need is based off of another person. And so it becomes very confusing to be in your body, to be in your mind. And that struggle is very, very uncomfortable. And so if you're in a codependent relationship, then you tend to lose sight of yourself. You lose sight of who you are, what makes you happy, what makes you feel fulfilled, what you are passionate about. You lose sight of all of that because you're so focused on this other person. And if that's what you're experiencing, then yeah, you're in a codependent relationship. Now, by no means is this an exhaustive list. It's simply meant to help you gain awareness as to whether or not you are in a codependent relationship. So you might be wondering, what do I do now? How do I change my situation? The first thing to understand is that the only way to truly heal codependency is to become principle-centered and to learn how to generate your self-worth, your security, your sense of guidance, your sense of trust, your power from within, instead of seeking those things from people and places outside of yourself. That's the only way to heal codependency. Because if you simply leave the relationship that you're in or just change the current relationship that you're in that you've identified as codependent, that's not going to address the root. You'll simply recreate another relationship, another codependent relationship down the road. Again, you have to address the root. If you don't do that, you just keep repeating the same things over and over and over. Now, to heal codependency, there's things that you got to start doing. You have to start building your self-worth from within. You've got to recognize that your self-worth does not come from another person, and it certainly doesn't come from your net worth either. Self-worth is something that must be earned, and it must be earned by you. No one can give that to you. In order to heal the codependency, you also must learn how to take care of your own needs. You have to address your health. I'm talking the totality of your health: physical, emotional, social, spiritual, mental, sexual, all of it. You've got to look at all of that and address it. Figure out what areas of your health are low or lacking. And there really is no cherry picking. It's not like, I'll address the physical, but I won't address the sexual. You've got to look at it all. In order to heal, you also must start to create boundaries. And you got to hold those boundaries. And you do that through having standards in your life. When you have a standard and you set that standard down, that's step one. Step two is then you have to actually stand. You got to stand when that standard is being challenged and pushed against. It's not easy to do, but I guarantee when you start doing it, it becomes easier and easier and easier. But you certainly have to begin doing that in order to heal the codependency. You also have to let go of that need to control other people. You got to just let people be as they are. It's not your job to control someone, to fix them, to do things for them, to tell them what to do. So in this area, you really have to learn the art of surrender. Surrender. It's like putting your hands up and just saying, I surrender. I let it go. It's one of the most freeing things that you can do, especially if that is how codependency is showing up in your relationship. And lastly, in order to heal that codependency, you have to identify what your values are and learn how to exercise and live out those values in a healthy way. Your values are what give your life excitement and joy and fulfillment. But there's a difference between activating those values in a healthy way and becoming codependent on those values. Because a lot of times, that's the opposite of principle-centered, is value-centered, where your values are where you derive your security, your guidance, your power, your wisdom, your self-esteem, your self-worth. And if you value family, for example, then you start creating codependent relationship towards family, and that's where you get your security, your guidance, your self-worth, so on and so forth. So you got to learn not only how to identify your values, but activate them in a healthy way, in a principle-centered way. So my recommended next step for you, if all of this is resonating, you're nodding your head, I recommend you go watch a video that my fellow coaches at the Your Day Balance game have put together. And I've dropped the link in the description. And this video is going to tell you the number one obstacle that stops most people from going from codependent to independent. And this number one obstacle robs people of their joy. And so if the things that I've shared in this podcast, if they struck a chord because they describe your current situation, then I definitely want you to go check out that video. Once again, there is a link in the description, and that link will point you to a page on the Your Day Balance Game website. So the link will look like theydbg.com. Just go check it out in the description. And that is it for me today, my friend. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. I am sending you so much love. My name is Matthew Bivens, and here is to you having it all. Quick note about the Having It All podcast. I am not a doctor nor a licensed therapist. I'm a man with a story and a passion for conscious conversation. My thoughts, opinions, and beliefs are my own. So please consult with your doctor or healthcare provider regarding any questions or issues you have related to your personal physical or mental health.
The first step to reaching your full potential is having the courage to start. At Strayer University, we help students take action by making higher education more affordable with access to up to 10 no-cost gen ed courses. Because our goal is helping you work toward yours, so you can always keep striving. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. No-cost gen ed provided by Strayer University affiliate Sophia Learning. Eligibility rules apply. Connect with us for details.